Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I have made the following observation, and I believe this. When I was a child, I thought nap time was a punishment. Now that I'm an old man, it feels like a small vacation. How true. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a patriot to call in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Let's get the week off right. Give me a call. And a good morning to you and your family, everybody out there in Radio Land. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a big fall tire sale going on right now. And also some of our great advertisers, including Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Well, good morning, sir.
Hey, buddy, go ahead.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Way to go, Wheels. And right now, K&R Rental brings you the weather. You know, there's still a lot of lawn mowing time left, and they're the proud distributor of Skag Lawn Mowers over there at K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 west of Hayburn, right there, smack dab on the Burley-Paul Highway. You can't miss them. They've got all the tools and rental equipment you need to finish any project, so get on over there. They open up early in the morning at 7 a.m., K&R Rental, 678-3122. Right now, here's our weather.
If you're having a hard time breathing, well, that's because we've got more wildfires burning in the area, and it's making those upper respiratory issues flare up again. Here's your weather forecast for this Monday on Zeb at the Ranch. Yes, areas of smoke. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side. Winds out of the east, right around 10 miles an hour, becoming west by this afternoon. And we could have gusts as high as 20 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 84. Tonight, it is going to be smoky, mostly clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 81, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 48. By Wednesday, mostly sunny skies, cooling down to the mid-70s. We're going to see a low in the upper 40s for Wednesday night. By Thursday, partly sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, and lows are going to be in the mid-40s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, she does a great job on the weather. Don't forget, K&R Rental brings you the weather right off the bat on the program every morning, Monday through Thursday. K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 west of Hayburn, and the number to call, 678-3122. Wow, we have got some home run hitters on the program this morning. 9:06, we've got Richard Manning from back in D.C. 9:30, one of my very favorite people, and she tells it like it is, God bless her, Brigitte Gabriel, and she's got a new book called Rise. And then at 10:06, Muslim jihad expert Robert Spencer is going to be on the program. Then at 10:30, we've got Tom Harris, and he is one of those that tells everybody the truth about the phoniness of climate change. So it's going to be really interesting all morning long. Don't forget our friends at Daryl's Cleaners. Hello, Kevin and Cindy. They always do the job for you to keep your clothes looking good, feeling good, and honestly looking like you just stepped out of a catalog, I'll tell you what. Daryl's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They're located, like I said, at 1223 Albion Avenue. And another service that they provide is if you don't have time to do your own clothes washing, they will wash, dry, fold, and iron all your clothes. Wow! They take care of you at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You stop in and see them today. And a quick note, I want to remind everybody, too, for all, and this isn't brag, this is a fact, all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. The number to call, 678-0459. They also get up early in the morning to be there by 7:30, and that's Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. You stop in and see them today. Got a cough. Hold on. All right, let's roll. Got rid of that old cough. I think it's allergies with all the dust and the smoke in the air. And if you could just tell us what your thoughts are about what's going on out there. No, with the dust and the smoke in the air, this one, Deanne, right behind me. If you close that window, we're getting a lot of outside noise from the tractors right here in the field. So thank you very much, my dear. And calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to tell you that this is kind of a bittersweet kind of a story this morning. I'll give you the bitter first. And that was last night, NBC, cowardly NBC television, with their Sunday night football broadcast. And the game was between two arch rivals for over 196 games dating back 100 years. And that's, of course, the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Naturally, I'm a Packer fan because that's where I was born and raised. But before the game started, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth were sitting in the booth, and I don't know how many of you noticed this last night, but while they were doing the prelims of setting up the stage for this team's got this team's got that, look out for that, etc., in the background, and the cameras didn't show a lot of it, it was just a little bitty corner, you could see all the people getting ready to march out on the field and have a great big flag that would be unfurled for our national anthem. We didn't see that last night. We didn't hear it last night because NBC covered it up with a commercial break, a rather extensive commercial break. And then they came back and went right to the beginning of the game. I find this totally frustrating, maddening. I'm going to personally send some letters to emails to NBC, let them know how absolute, and they're not the only ones that are cowards. ESPN's a coward, so is CBS. And let them know that I want and appreciate the opening of a game, especially one of that magnitude, with the national anthem. What are your thoughts on that? And let's forget all about that portion of it and go to the suite. I have not seen a professional football game that exciting in my whole life, ever. My Green Bay Packers were down 20-0, and they carted Aaron Rodgers, $144 million football player, off the field with what could have been an ACL tear in the knee. Took him off on a cart. And he comes back limping, not even able hardly to stand on that leg, and brought Green Bay back to win the game in the final minute, 24-23. And I know all the cheeseheads out there in the audience like me, yay! I was jumping up and down, and didn't appreciate that because she was trying to sleep. But what a game. What an absolute comeback. But it's still, like I said, a bittersweet because I wanted to see and hear that national anthem before that game. Your thoughts, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget our friends at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. Oh, what nice people. Oh, what delicious food. Oh, any time of the day, all the time. Right there at 611 North Overland in Burley. And they also have another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Denny's Restaurant, great menu choices, nice people serving you. It's the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Don't you miss out. You stop in. Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. And real fast, before we take this call, I want to also remind you about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Yep, today's the day I'm going to call old Nick over there, Nick Greenwell, and start setting up some times to where I can come in and have them work on my old leg. And they do a great job at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. The number to call is 678-1191. And believe me, they can and they will help you get back to being you. With all the exercises and that hydrotherapy pool, oh yeah, please get a hold of them today. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 678-1191. Caller, good morning to you. You're the first one for this week. How are you?
Good morning. You are one happy camper.
Well, kind of, yeah, kind of.
Now for the bad news.
Okay.
Okay, I know that you don't deal in speculation, but this whole anonymous thing, that's all you can do is speculate, right? We have no facts, no nothing or anything. But my theory, that's just mine, is that this is not coming from the White House, but a disgruntled group. Not just one person, but several that have vowed to take this president down. And I honestly believe this, but it is speculation.
Okay, I am not going to argue your point because there again, I'd be speculating. Who wrote the op-ed that appeared in the New York Times that makes statements and accusations about the Trump administration being in total disarray and everything else? I don't know. Some of the names that came to the forefront were, and I'll use this name as who I thought it was originally, was that black lady Omarosa. I honestly had my feelings that it was her, along with someone else helping her with the verbiage, because I don't think she's that sharp. But that was my first choice. I don't know who it is, but whoever it is, I hope they find the person. And I hope that if they had any kind of a high-level security clearance or something that they would sit in on meetings and possibly have a right to know or a need to know basis, and they were spreading this kind of thing around, there should be some kind of litigation against them.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on what you said. This Omarosa is probably the conduit to the White House. And this information was fed to other people. You know, she didn't say everything she knew. She just tried to say things that were damaging to the president.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to know, if you can answer it, is what is OPED?
Oh, that's opinion editorial page.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, op-ed pages.
I thought it was something unimportant.
No. When you hear the terminology op-ed, that means it's the opinion and editorial page. Like in the Times News, op-ed page was, of course, where they have their editorials, their guest opinions, etc., like that. That's what op-ed means.
You made my morning.
All right, buddy. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Wonderful day.
I will.
I guess go Packers.
That a boy. That a boy. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right.
Bye.
Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. It's supposed to be this anonymous, they think might be a quote-unquote high-level insider, to kind of use a simplistic phrase. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is that there has been more effort by the liberal left and the sleazy left to bring this presidency down. No matter what it takes, they're going to try to bring this presidency down. And I'm just sickened by it. There's so many things that need to be done in this country. There's so many people in situations that need to be helped. Our security, etc. And all the left, the liberals, and the Democrats can think of is, oh, we hate Trump. Oh, we hate Trump. We got to get rid of him. This could be the downfall of America. I want to remind you about the Purple Shovel Market at the, of course, Nature's Nursery. Wow! It's an outdoor market, and September 15th, coming up on Saturday, from 10 to 4, they are going to have antiques and crafts and lots of food vendors and unique finds. I love that word, unique finds. Like, you ain't going to find them anywhere else, but they're unique, and they're going to be there at the Purple Shovel Market. Oh, my goodness, do not miss this. At the Nature's Nursery at 120 East Highway 81 in Burley, right across from the Burley Golf Course. This is going to be quite a deal, and I urge you to be there coming up this Saturday, the Purple Shovel Market, with this great, big, fun event. Antiques, crafts, the whole shooting match. Going to be there for you. Be there. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say a big thank you to our friends at Lennox, and I'll tell you why. Here at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley, they're very proud to offer service you can trust, along with Lennox products that can help keep you comfortable and save you money. This fall, Ramsey Heating and Electric is offering up to $1,600 in rebates on brand new Lennox systems, so call them today at 678-0459 or visit them online, ramseysonline.com, and they're proudly offering Lennox products. Just another way to make you feel better. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. When I heard this story the other day, I think it was on Friday morning, at first I thought, you got to be kidding me. They couldn't be this silly and stupid. But, as luck would have it, it is both silly and stupid. Political correctness has gone even lower into the cesspool down in Texas. Let me tell you what happened. Now there's a bunch of goofballs, and boy, I would love to call them exactly what I think they are, but I can't. But there's a bunch of goofballs in Texas that want the word heroic. I'll say it again, stand by, caller, that want the word heroic taken out of the Texas history books when it comes to the defenders of the Alamo. In the books, it refers to the 186 men that defended the Alamo against thousands from Santa Anna's Mexican army as heroic defenders of the Alamo. And these goofballs want the word heroic stricken. Aye, my grandmother would say this. Aye, 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 aye. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. You know, a lot of these liberal and left-wing organizations are probably being funded mainly, or a big part of them, from the Communist Party that looks like is getting a big, stronger foothold in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of these actors and actresses, they've probably been told you either put put up the money to keep our left-wing and communist programs going, or you're not going to make any money.
You know, I think that there is a concentrated effort for funding many of the Hollywood actors, if you want to call them that. I have other words for them. Phonies is one of them. But I think a lot of the Hollywood movement and money going to outside sources to be subversive. And I'm going to make a statement here that maybe you won't agree with and a lot of people might be upset about. But I honestly think you want to follow the money trail on our gubernatorial election, and I'm really concerned that a lot of that leftist money might be going to Paulette Jordan. I have no proof, but I have heard innuendos, and I want to follow it.
Oh, you're right. These guys would take any kind of a path to destroy what Donald Trump has done. And this new gal that came on, Cortez, that came on the thing, she is probably a paid agent from a foreign country. That's here for one thing, and that's to bring Donald Trump down.
Well, I'm really concerned.
That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, the left will, and they've shown this already, they're very capable of stooping down and doing the dirty deeds. And I'm like you, I'm very concerned about this election. I think if you and Mary and Deanne and I and everybody else in the audience does not go and vote in November, Katie, bar the door. We're going to get what we don't want, and then we have no right to gripe.
Well, and these people that want socialism so bad is going to find out that socialism, living under socialism, isn't that great.
Amen. Tony, it's always good to hear from you and your lovely wife, Mary. God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Hey, in just a few moments, I'm going to give away some cookies, so stay tuned for that. But right now, I also want to tell you about Berry Equipment and Rental and Old Juan over there at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, and the other locations, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin with Eli, and the Napa location of Berry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts. Now, you know they've got all those big, heavy Doosan loaders. And I mean, they've got all the Doosan equipment. They've got all the Bobcat excavators, all shapes and sizes ready for you. I don't care what you're looking for. They've got the equipment there for you. And if you're not sure what you need, they can help. If you're not sure how to run it, they can help. They got a big sandbox out behind the business, and they can help you learn. It's all there for you at Berry Equipment and Rental, Sales, Service, and Parts. Burley, Twin Falls, and Napa. Berry Equipment and Rental. Right now, we are going to give away a dozen delicious cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness, what a bakery. I mean, the cookies and the pies and the cakes, wedding cakes. Hey, you got a wedding coming up? They do a wonderful job. And then, of course, the great restaurant. What a great place to eat at Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. And if you win the cookies, call them and tell them when you be over to pick them up. They'll have them ready for you. Here is the question, and it's an easy one this morning, okay? Really easy. Name the United States president that has the same name, last name, as a famous cartoon character. Name the U.S. president that has the same last name as a famous cartoon character. And I'll tell you, it's not Obama in conjunction with Dennis the Menace. It's not him. But anyhow, give me the answer on that. Name the U.S. president that has the same last name of a famous cartoon character that's in the paper every single day. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587, and you'll win the cookies. Come on, that's an easy one this morning. Name of the U.S. president that has the same last name of that of a famous cartoon character. Come on. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call real fast. While I am waiting for your call, I've got to brag, and it's not brag if it's a fact, and it's a fact. I have never seen such great service as you will receive, I receive, from our dear friends at Stoats Equipment Company, your John Deere dealer. They're located at 119 Oberlin and Burley, and they make your life easier. Don't forget they sponsor on Tuesdays, tomorrow at 9:46, your Stoats Equipment Ag Minutes. Stoats Equipment Company, your John Deere dealer. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, yeah, it must be Garfield.
Who is this?
This is Jeff Daly.
Jeff, the last Bailey or Daly?
Daly with a D.
Okay, well, Jeff, you are the man. It is Garfield, and I had to put you on the spot a little bit. What number president was Garfield?
Oh, geez. I couldn't tell you.
Take a wild stab in the dark, and I tell you what, if you get that right, I'll buy you another dozen cookies. No fair cheating. No fair cheating. Don't ask your wife or anybody around you. What's the answer real quick? 1, 2, 3.
8, 10, I don't know.
No, 8, 10, 37, 42. Hike. No, he was the 20th president. Okay, but you are the winner, and you call over to our friends at Sophie's Chatterbox and tell them when you're going to be there. Jeff, you won it, man. Garfield is the right answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the cookies. There you go, Jeff Daly, the winner of the cookies. All right, it's your turn now. Give me a call, 436-2244. What do you think about that? Taking the word heroic. There are absolutely some goofballs, or whatever you want to call them, that are so PC correct, and they don't want to give any credit to Americans whatsoever, or anything of our past, anything of our history, anything about heroism, anything about what absolutely Texas stands for. They want the word heroic taken out of the explanation as to what happened with the defenders of the Alamo in 1836, where 186 men held off thousands of Santa Anna's Mexican army for days. And I can't think of a better example of heroism or being heroic. But the PC wingnuts want that word taken out. Can you believe it? 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. You know, this revisionist history is just incredible. Our kids, I've got a friend, a professor in one of the Idaho universities, gives them and he's a history civics teacher, gives them a test about our Constitution and what kind of government we have. And they're all good little green socialists is what's coming out of our schools. But to not call the people in the Alamo heroes, I mean, they certainly were. And I'll tell you, when you talk to somebody in Texas, like I've got a relative that lives down there, I mean, they understand what happened at the Alamo.
Yep. Well, let me jump in on you, Adrian. Let me jump in a little bit. The 186 men that were at the Alamo, and all accounts prove this with family diaries and letters and everything else, they knew they were going to die. They knew that they were fighting for the rights and the possibility that Texas could be a state of the United States. They knew that their actions were going to slow down Santa Anna in his march to try to purge that area of Texas of any whites or any Americans of any kind. So they gave their lives for the concept and the being of Texas becoming a state of the United States. If that's not heroic, I don't know what is.
Well, absolutely, Zeb. You know, it's interesting. I think Texas still has the option, from what I understand, to divide into 5 states. It's big enough, you know. I mean, Texas is huge, and there's 5 regions that initially they wanted to have 5 states, and they wouldn't let them into the union under that type of situation where they'd have those 5 different states within Texas itself. But you know, that this history thing, revisionist, the textbooks that are coming out, I've seen some of them from my grandkids that are coming down the line. It is really sad.
Yeah.
And they're just teaching, you know, there's all this revisionist history. Our founding fathers, there's almost nothing about George Washington, who's my favorite president. And it's just, you know, they demean everything that they stand for. And those talk about sacrifice.
Yeah.
George Washington, I mean, he was out there at Valley Forge. He wasn't in the cozy, nice, warm quarters like the British leaders were. I mean, he's freezing to death. Forces starved to death. Men were froze. It's and 67 miracles he categorized that God helped us win our independence from Britain.
Yeah. Adrian, I got to run, but I just am glad you called in on this because we need heroes today. We need heroes that are going to stand up and spit in the eye, if you will, of the liberal left. And we need to make sure that, like in Texas, with the defenders of the Alamo in our history in 1836, that it remains that they were heroes and what they did was very heroic. Thank you so much for your call this morning.
We've got a lot of heroes, and take the word heroes out. We've certainly had a lot of them down through the ages. This is a great constitutional republic if we can keep it, as Ben Franklin said.
Amen.
Have a great day.
Amen. That's really true. You know, whether you have seen any of the movies, and there's been a lot of movies about the siege at the Alamo, and, you know, I'm not going to go into any of the different characterizations of the personalities, whether it was Jim Bowie or whether it was Davy Crockett or whomever, but the heroic stand, knowing that they were going to die. They knew they were going to die. There was no way in the world that 186 men were going to turn back literally thousands upon thousands of the Mexican troops. And if that's not heroic, I don't know what is. And I give credit to Governor Greg Abbott. He said, no, the word heroic will stay. And I compliment him on that. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I think that the dictionary's been rewritten because now patriotic means you kneel, and heroic means you go protest against the police, and a mugger gets off in court, and the guy who defends his property goes to jail. And, you know, there's so many words. And race used to be, if you was racist, that meant that you didn't think an entire race of people was, that you thought they were inferior. Now it's any word you want to throw out means you're racist.
Yeah. No, I like your analogy this morning. And Wheels, we got a little feedback here, buddy. But words don't mean the same as they did when I was growing up, and I'm an old man. But there's been a distortion and a discrediting of certain words and phrases, etc. But to sit there and have these absolute hairballs come in there and say that, well, we can't use the word heroic with the defenders of the Alamo because, well, we might offend somebody. Well, hey, go ahead and offend somebody. It happened, it's history, and it better stay that way.
Exactly. Well, that's just like the college where they weren't allowed to put up 9/11 posters because it might offend the Muslims.
Yeah.
No, it might offend ISIS, and excuse me, they need to be offended. If you're a Muslim and you're offended by it, then you're kind of too far left for me.
Well, let me ask you this. In your daily life, and I don't want you to mention any names or any circumstances or whatever, but do you get out of bed in the morning and worry about offending someone, or do you just go about your daily activities the best you know how?
I don't If I offend somebody, it wasn't intentionally,
Well, let me state my case on this.
Offense at something I did that I didn't even know I did.
Yeah. Let me state my case on this. On this kind of a program, this kind of a show, I absolutely am going to offend somebody every single hour I'm on the air. Now, I could lose a lot of sleep over that, or I could take the position that I have for the last 20-some-odd years. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be forthright about my opinions. I'm only going to give the facts, and if that is offending somebody, I'm going to emphasize these words. I don't care.
Exactly. And if you're offended, it's probably your problem and not the speaker or the doer.
Right. But political correctness has gone crazy. I mean, it's like dropping yourself into a pit of rattlesnakes. They're all going to strike at you. And right now to say that the word heroic should be stricken from the history books so that our students in this country don't realize the heroism that was involved in giving their lives for the Republic of Texas at that time, my goodness, these hairballs, goofballs, whatever you want to call them, go sit in the corner and leave us alone.
Exactly. And now we see who's being touted as a hero. Pat Tillman wasn't a hero, but Colin Kaepernick is. Excuse me.
Oh, my.
Offends me.
The ad, I saw the ad on TV last night and for Nike, and honestly, it just was so repulsive. And I never have liked Kaepernick anyway. I think he's an overpaid, underworked sports figure that fell into it because of his athletic abilities, and now they're using him for their advertisements. It's pathetic, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, and had they started that, I mean, I haven't seen the whole commercial yet. Had they started the commercial out and said, heroes of sports, who gave up everything,
yeah.
They just make it sound like these are the most heroic people in the whole world and nobody else ever gave up anything.
Did you hear about Brittany Jacobs? And she lost her husband over in Afghanistan, and she wrote a letter to Colin Kaepernick. Woo! Let me tell you what, I'm going to try to read that letter later on today or sometime tomorrow, and she talks about true sacrifice. This woman is very outspoken and really knows what she's talking about. Hey, caller, I appreciate your call. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. God bless you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you. Caller, I'll tell you what, before I do the weather forecast, I'll get you on the program. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
I was just kind of listening to your analogy. Do we go along and try to worry about offending somebody, or just go along our day and do the best we can? I'm like you. I just go along my day doing the best I can. For the most part, on simple matters, I don't think we have the power to offend one another. I think if we take offense at something, that's not necessarily somebody else's fault when it comes down to a simplistic type matter.
Well, okay.
On a more grievous offense and stuff like that, I basically see. But a lot like you, Zeb, I'm offended by a lack of patriotism and a lack of responsibility for our own actions in the world.
Well, stop right there and let me ask you something really quick. I am offended to the point of not being just offended. I'm outright enraged mad over the networks, whether it's CNN or whether it is ESPN or NBC, CBS, or ABC. They are cowards. They have no backbone. They have no spine. And for them not to show the national anthem thinking, oh, well, we'll hide it, we'll cover it up, and then go right to the game and the general public won't say anything. I will. I was offended because they didn't show it last night at the beginning of that NFL game between Green Bay and Chicago. They hid it and they covered it up, and they're cowards.
I agree, and it's sad that the world is so ridiculous that they have tainted what the difference between right and wrong is. Just like you had mentioned earlier, the words don't mean the same that they used to. It's because they've painted them in a different direction, and it's sad that people are so stupid, for lack of a better thought, that they're not able to work that through and do the right thing.
Amen. Well said. Thank you. And call again. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Caller, I'm going to ask your patience. I've got to get a weather on, and I promise, as well as I'm sitting right here in this chair, I'll come right to you. Stand by. Don't forget Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids with Dr. Pickup and Dr. Mitchell. And believe me, you can trust your hearing health to these great doctors over at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And they're located right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. And I urge you to call the number for a hearing screening today. Absolutely. 312-0957. 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
If you're having a hard time breathing, well, that's because we've got more wildfires burning in the area, and it's making those upper respiratory issues flare up again. Here's your weather forecast for this Monday on Zeb at the Ranch. Yes, the areas of smoke. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side. Winds out of the east, right around 10 miles an hour, becoming west by this afternoon. And we could have gusts as high as 20 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 84. Tonight, it is going to be smoky, mostly clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 81, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 48. By Wednesday, mostly sunny skies, cooling down to the mid-70s. We're going to see a low in the upper 40s for Wednesday night. By Thursday, partly sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, and lows are going to be in the mid-40s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, thank you, Gina, and brought to everybody by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Don't forget to get a copy of that great book by Dr. Christine Pickup called Communication Tips for Happier Relationships. It's free. Don't you wait a minute. You give them a call for an appointment at 312-0957. Caller, good morning, and thank you for your patience.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, trying to downplay the Alamo is baloney. Absolute straight baloney. It's kind of like that old, what was it called, a pistol, the old 44? It didn't work. That's why we got the new Trump 45. It works great. It does the job every time, and it's honest and true.
There you go. You know, Jerry, you've served our great country, and you do so much to still serve our great country, and I don't like the minimization of anything in our history. If we're not big enough and tough enough to stand up under scrutiny for any past mistakes or whatever, then we're not much of a country. But to try to whitewash it and cover it up because of the PC bunch ain't going to happen on this program.
Well, to say they weren't brave and they weren't honorable people is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
They knew they were going to die. They knew they didn't have a chance. They knew another day or two could win that war, and they took the chance and gave their life, and actually now we've got another state, which could be 5 sometime in the future. And they were nothing but about as brave as you can get, and I'll stand by that till my last kicking breath.
All right. Jerry, I always know where you stand, and I stand with you. Thank you, my dear friend.
You bet. You have a wonderful day, and may the Lord bless you and your whole audience.
I appreciate it, Jerry. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Caller number 2, I'm going to be right with you. Stand by. Don't go away. I want to remind everybody again at Ramsey Heating and Electric, they're very proud to offer service you can trust, along with Lennox products that keep you comfortable and save you money. This fall, Ramsey Heating and Electric is offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a brand new Lennox system. So give them a call at 678-0459 or visit them online at ramseysonline.com. Absolutely proudly offering Lennox products, just another way to make you feel better. Caller, good morning.
Well, good morning, Mr. Bell. How are you on this beautiful Monday morning?
Oh, I'm just peachy fine, peachy fine. What can I do for you?
Well, I wanted to take just a few minutes of your time to tell you thank you so much for all your advertising and help with the 3rd Annual Patriotic Car Show.
Well, you're very welcome, my dear.
Pardon me?
I said you're very welcome, my dear.
Oh, well, you know, it was such a wonderful turnout, and we want to thank all of our sponsors. and vendors. I'm not going to name them all by name because I'm sure I'd forget somebody. But anyway, we mainly wanted to thank you because you do a lot for us and for the veterans and for our community. And just on a happy note, thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and I know that now you have a real task at hand. And today is a special day for the gentleman that lives with you, and that's your husband, George. It's his birthday, and I know he's still sleeping in, so why don't you go into the bedroom and croon in his ear, "Happy birthday, dear Georgie," and make him feel good.
Oh, my God, that scared the heck out of him.
Well, come to think.
Have you heard me sing?
I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Have a great day, Donna. God bless you, man. My dear friend. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Nice people. George and Donna Mass, thank you so much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm still giggling from that one, too. I just have a comment. I heard that also the Miami Dolphins game, just was it last night or just over the weekend, 2 of their players also took a knee and were appraised by Kaepernick for that.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
I did, and I have this statement that I made earlier. Any team or any game that is on national television, and they do have athletes that take a knee or kneel, whatever, or go sit down on the bench, I will turn that game off. I was not appraised of anyone from Chicago or Green Bay last night taking a knee or showing disrespect. So the only thing that was disrespectful last night to me was the network being cowards and not showing the national anthem.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally. Also, now about the LMI, just a couple nights ago I watched a movie, Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone and those that lost their lives there and how courageous they were. And it makes me think back in World War II, we'll never see this again today, but right from kindergarten through the seniors in high school, the kids were going up and down the streets with their wagons collecting metals and scrap and the things that were rationed that we did without. There would never be that type of patriotism today.
You know, what you just said is really the truth, and it's highly unfortunate that this country has evolved, according to the liberal left, into being just basically un-American on a lot of situations. I'm proud that my dad fought in World War II. I'm proud of all my uncles. I'm proud of my past and my grandparents that also fought in the war previous, the World War I, my great-grandpa. I just don't think the pride is there anymore today, and I don't know what we can do to bring it back.
Well, the thing is that the children then were just as aware of what the patriotism and what it meant for our country because they were learning it in school.
Yeah.
Even the little grade school kids were out organizing teams to go collect and do things to help with patriotism. And look at the sacrifices the families made.
Amen.
The children today don't even, let alone my great-grandchildren. My grandchildren just barely do, and it's only because they've been taught in our home. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have it.
Amen. I always appreciate your looks at life on this program. Thank you so much. Appreciate your call. Thank you. Nice lady right there. Oh, my goodness, I got to pay some bills, and I'm going to get a chance right now to talk about our major sponsor. I tell you what, these are my friends. These are my friends that really, really serve you. All 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Yes, sirree, they've got a great big fall tire sale going on right now, and many, many, many of the tires you need for your cars, your pickup, and your SUVs are on sale. I'm not kidding. Like the premium traction, can I say premium again and not bite my lip? I hope so. Premium traction tires, superior ride quality of the Eclipse tire for your cars. Ooh, it's on sale right now. And all the tires, of course, for your driving safety. Now, along with that, they've got the best in brake service. Absolutely the best in brake service. Highly trained technicians, front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and more with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy, my old buddy, on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. What do we got cooking? Let's see. Next hour, Richard Manning. I cannot wait to talk to him about this anonymous op-ed. And then at 9:30, one of my dear friends, Brigitte Gabriel. You've seen her on network newscasts. You've seen her on Fox. You've seen her all over the country. Brigitte Gabriel's got a brand new book called Rise. And then at 10:06 this morning, Robert Spencer is going to talk about Muslim jihad. And then at 10:32, Tom Harris talking about the absolutely holes like Swiss cheese belief in climate change. So we're going to have him on the air. Right now, we're going to send it back over to our main studio. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Good morning on a Monday. I know it takes a little bit to get back in gear. We're still pushing the clutch in, trying to get it in gear. Good morning, everybody. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell. And, of course, our major sponsor, your Magic Valley. Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a great big fall tire sale right now. And some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, get on the route service. It's easy. All you need to do is call them at 734-6969 and say, hey, we'd like to have our garbage picked up weekly. Well, they'll take care of it. Absolutely the best they are. Always at your disposal. Call Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Want to remind you, too, we're very, very happy, and they've been with us for so long on this program, and I'm talking about Hanson Mortuary. With Joel Hewart, his family, and his staff, they are so community-oriented, serving you. When there's the passing of a loved one, please know that it's a hard time on everyone, and they want to help ease the stress and always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please call them today on pre-planning of funerals, number 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. And Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. We're going to have our guest on the line in a moment, and I'm going to issue him an apology right on the air, and I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. I want to remind you about Anthony and Save on Shells. Hey, if you're looking for a camper shell on your pickup, look no further than Save on Shells at 1827 Overland in Burley. Take it from me, absolutely the best with the ARE camper shells. Oh, do I like mine. Anthony will take care of you with a very personalized service. 312-1525. That number again, 312-1525. Save on Shells at 1827 Overland in Burley. And real quick, we've got to get this in. I want to remind everybody that has pets and livestock, you want to keep them healthy? Well, Ark Animal Hospital is committed to that, to helping serve your pets and your livestock at 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Hayburn. Believe me, Dr. Bill and Dr. Jordan, the whole crew, everybody's concerned about the health of your animals, so please remember to give them a call at 678-1177. 678-1177, ARC Animal Hospital, where they do have the warm hearts for the cold noses. All right, right up front, I want to apologize to this gentleman. Last week on Monday was Labor Day. I forgot to call and let him know that I wasn't going to be on the air. Richard Manning, I'm sorry, old buddy. Please take my apology.
Okay, that's okay. As a former Labor Department official, I never anticipate that I'm going to get to take Labor Day off. But I'm glad that you had a great Labor Day, great 3-day weekend, and truthfully, it didn't break my heart that I was able to go take my wife to lunch.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate your comments and your kind thoughts. I want to start things off this morning in kind of a potpourri of different things in the news. What are your thoughts about this anonymous op-ed in the New York Times? I mean, do you have any thoughts about who done it, if you will, or what the repercussions are going to be? Give us your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I find it to be reprehensible that somebody would purport to work for the Trump administration. They're a political appointee. They're not a career person. They are, so they have a choice. And they are choosing to work as a resistor within the Trump administration. The concept that someone would put themselves above the vote of the people to be the ombudsman, so to speak, of what is right and righteous in their own minds is absolutely beyond comprehension. It's a violation of everything that the legislative process stands for, the elected process stands for, and the person needs to resign. The person needs to become public and resign their position if they cannot follow and do what the President of the United States decides needs to be done. This is really, really simple. You know, when you're working for an elected official or any boss, for that matter, ultimately you can say what you think is the right answer. You have every right to argue what you think is the right position or the right direction that a company should go. But once the decision is made, then your job is to implement the decision. Your job isn't to try to then undermine the decision after the decision has been made. Your job is not to hope that the president will forget the decision while you don't do it or you slow walk it. Your job as a White House official is to implement the decisions of the President of the United States, to inform the president up front, but then to implement those decisions. If there are decisions that you can't implement, then it's your job to leave the administration and not sit there and say, well, I'm going to block the decision by inaction and hope that I can get it revisited later. That isn't your job. And it's appalling to me that somebody would do that.
You know, and I'm glad you brought up the analogy of everyday work all the way back to the presidency. It's no different than someone that works in a factory. It's no different than someone that works for a farm. Anything. Any kind of labor and or job, there has to be an answering to authority to conform to the way the owners and the management want it done. And for this particular person or groups of people that wrote this op-ed, it just absolutely subverts anything as far as a cohesive relationship within this administration, and I think it's going to really deteriorate much worse than what it is right now. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, hopefully it wakes the president up and he starts hiring people who actually support his mission.
Right.
You know, this president has delegated the hiring authority within his administration to some people who really didn't support him. And I think some of the hiring decisions that have been made have been very poor as a result. And so hopefully what the positive part of this is that the president says, wait a second, I need to make certain that people who are hired are people who are going to be on board and be on the team, and not people who are taking the job so they can obstruct my administration. So I'm hoping that that's the positive net result of this. On the outside looking in, it has seemed clear to me that there have been some hiring decisions. And I'm not talking people who you and I would know based on being cabinet level. I'm talking about lower level positions where the people are clearly not on board with the president's agenda. They've been very clearly not on board with the president's agenda, and as a result, you just scratch your head and you say, how did these people get hired? The president needs to get a hold of that in his own administration. I think he's trusted some people he shouldn't have trusted, and now he needs to evaluate everything in terms of the hiring he made in the first and the first round of hiring at the very beginning of the administration.
Let me ask you this, Richard, and of course you know President Trump, and you know the circumstances and the scene back in Washington far, far better than myself. Is this administration on the verge of unraveling like a cheap suit, or are all these allegations basically because the liberal left still can't accept the fact that he won the presidency?
Nothing. Let me just answer it this way. This situation that came out in this anonymous opinion piece is not new. So the president has been, all the successes of this president have been done in spite of this kind of slow-walking attitude that exists within the White House and within the administration. Not everybody, and let me be fair, you can't, there's probably a majority of the people who are working for this president really, really want him to succeed, okay? So we can't just throw everybody out because of a couple of disgruntled people. But the fact is, he's been succeeding in this environment for the last 19, 20 months. So, no, it's not unraveling. That's wishful thinking by the left. It's wishful thinking by the never-Trumpers who are sitting there trying to justify their continued opposition to a president who's accomplished more from a conservative perspective than anyone in my lifetime, and I include Ronald Reagan in that. And and as a result, yes, they're trying to disrupt the presidency, but this is a guy who thrives on disruption, and no one should be surprised that those who bet everything that he would be a failure are going to try to have what they believed would occur, try to make that happen, and try to separate them, try to create an environment where this president gets blamed for everything that you don't like, but gets credit for none of the stuff you do like. And ultimately, that's what that op-ed tried to do. And it is the most self-serving, disingenuous thing I've read in a very, very long time. And being in Washington, D.C., virtually everything I read is disingenuous and self-serving. So this really is a capstone of Washington, D.C. Speak in terms of what the New York Times chose to publish.
Richard, could it be, and this is speculation on my part, but could it be that nobody within the administration wrote the op-ed, and it is a brainchild, if you will, of the New York Times, written in a third-party influence because they hate Donald Trump?
I think that's highly doubtful. I issued a statement on this issue. Anybody wants to see it, you can look at it at getliberty.org. It's on there. And I do put I do leave the door open that it was wasn't written by an administration official, because we have no way of knowing, because the person's anonymous. So we have to take the New York Times word for it, which truthfully is not all that reassuring. But it rings true, and that it is the set of arguments that have been laid out by some never-Trump folks since the onset of the administration. We read the same thing, I think, in the New York Times article. I'm trying to find it about a year ago, where some people out of the National Security Council were saying that they were hanging in with Trump because they're trying to make certain he doesn't do anything dumb, and trying to direct his actions in such a way away from doing things like leaving the Paris Climate Agreement, like staying in the Iran Treaty. And so they saw their mission to try to continue Obama's agenda through the Trump presidency, and truthfully, the Bush agenda through the Trump presidency. And so so it wasn't all that surprising to me. The language is language which you could read probably on Eric Erickson's website virtually every day. And so there's a real disagreement in conservative circles about the Trump presidency. some of us look at it, we look at results, and we say the results are good. And others look at it and say, but we don't like the way he talks about things. And quite honestly, the real battle here, Zeb, is over trade. You get down to it, most of the people who have the most problems with President Trump are people who believe that we should open our borders to trade, open our borders to immigration, and they call that free markets. Mm-hmm. And they're wrong. And so they lost that battle. They got destroyed in the election over that battle, but they refused to give up the philosophical position. And so they're denigrating everything that's about President Trump because ultimately that's a position they're not willing to lose. And those people are very well funded. The Koch brothers are in that position. There's a lot of very, very wealthy corporate donors to the Republican Party who would have our borders be open both for labor and for trade, and effectively would make America a massive free trade zone without having any capacity to protect ourselves from predatory countries like China. And they're wrong. They're wrong. President Trump's right. I think history is going to show that. I think the current environment is showing that. But that's their philosophical position. It's a philosophical position that they hold very strongly, and they're not going to back away from it. And they're going to attack Trump on everything because ultimately he's the person who's destroying something that they've kind of come to believe over a period of 50 years.
Tomorrow marks a big day at the literary circles because Bob Woodward's new book is going to come out, and he, too, is going to be very denigrating of this administration and particularly President Donald Trump. What are your thoughts about Woodward's book and how some of the people with direct quotes in the book are saying, nope, I never said that?
I think everybody needs to remember that Bob Woodward is the guy who went in and interviewed former CIA Director Casey when he was in a coma, and wrote a book about it, and created and former CIA. I know relatives of former CIA Director Casey, and they tell me very clearly he was in a induced coma when Woodward supposedly interviewed him. There was no way he could have interviewed him. Casey was not able to talk. So, given that, yet Woodward produced a book around those conversations, alleged conversations, were part of the main talking point out of the book. So, given his history of anonymous sources that turn out not to really be real, and interviewing people who can't talk, I'm not going to spend any money buying the Woodward book. If I want to read the Woodward book, I'll go read 75% of the articles in National Review by disgruntled former Bush and administration officials and people who worked in the Romney campaign for president, and be able to read what I would read in the Woodward book. So, if you want to save yourself some money, just go online and read anything by a former Romney political campaign official, and you'll basically read what's in the Woodward book.
Richard, you followed politics most all your life, your adult life, and you know a lot of.
By the way, I was doing politics when I was 5. So.
Oh my goodness!
I've been a junkie since my cerebral cortex kind of formed.
Well, God bless you. And what I'm going to ask you next is, and this should be right down your alley, Obama. It seems like he is breaking the mold of past presidents, criticizing and denigrating current administration policies. What are your thoughts about Obama being on the stump to help the Democrats in the fall election, the midterms, and some of the absolute divisive verbiage that he's using?
Well, first of all, I think it's the best thing that could happen for Republican turnout. Anybody who listens to Obama knows that's what we rejected in 2016. We rejected being talked down to. We rejected having somebody who looked at America as a hyphenated America, who viewed that America's best days as being behind her. We rejected that. We rejected the careless opportunism that Obama showed in his speech, where he claimed that he had no scandals, where he talked as if the rest of us weren't even awake during the 8 years when he was president. We were supposed to forget about Benghazi. We were supposed to forget about the IRS scandal. We're supposed to forget about the targeting. In fact, he didn't even have the courage to address the fact that his own Department of Justice during the last year of his presidency was engaged in political activity to try to subvert the electoral process of the United States government. So, yes, every one of us needs to pay attention to the fact that Obama's back on the stage, because that's what you're going to get if the Democrats win in November. It is absolutely, I don't care if it's, once you're by the primary, you have to make a decision between the two people who are on the card. You don't get to say, I wish a third person was on the card. You get to say, who is on the card who has a legitimate chance to win, and you have to pick the one who's going to allow for Devin Nunes to still be the head of the House Intelligence Committee. You have to pick the one who's going to make certain that we have the ability to actually get things done in the Senate, because we're not sitting at a 51-49 advantage where you have no opportunity to get things done in the Senate. So you've got to be smart about this. And, you know, I am a hardcore win in the primary guy. But at some point, once the primaries are over, and the other side in the Republican Party doesn't do this, and it frustrates me to no end, but on the House side, the Republicans cannot lose control of the House simply because Paul Ryan is disinterested in keeping control of the House. We need Devin Nunes as the head of the House Intelligence Committee and not Adam Schiff. If you have Adam Schiff as the head of the House Intelligence Committee, you're going to have impeachment of Donald Trump. So I'm glad that Barack Obama is out of the closet. He's been trying to run a shadow government for the last 19, 20 months, and now he's out trying to lead it. And that's what we have to reject. When you see Obama, you have to say, that's what Donald Trump has been trying to fix for the past 20 months. And if Obama's vision for America of a continued decline, continued disruption, continued hyphenated America where we hate each other, if that is what the future is going to be, if that's what the future you want to be, then stay at home. But if that's what you reject, you have to come out and vote regardless if the person who's on the ballot is somebody who you would have preferred that you voted for an opponent, or you would have preferred that person not be the guy that you would pick.
We've got exactly a minute left, caller. I'm almost out of time. Real fast, your comments for Richard Manning, please.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know the left is working as hard as Donald Trump did before the 2016 election, because he left nothing on the table. He gave her his all, and it worked. And they think that they're doing the same thing. I believe it. They've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. But when you lie as much as they do, I don't think that it resonates with the real people of this country who actually go and vote. But, you know, let's hope that the people that care about America show up and vote for this midterm election. And one more quick point about racism and Obama. After 8 years of Obama, racism in this country is worse than it's ever been. And one of the reflections of that is Serena Williams complaining yesterday about being a woman and how she's fighting for women's rights. And I love Serena. But you see, she was never oppressed, and women aren't oppressed either. I'll hang up.
Quick response, Richard, if you would.
Yeah, in Idaho in particular, you have a large influx of people who weren't born in Idaho, particularly in the Boise area. And it is incumbent upon everybody who is listening to this station to get out and vote and make certain that Idaho doesn't get turned into Oregon and Washington from a standpoint of because of people who are coming to Idaho because of the great environment, but may take some of their California values with them.
Absolutely. The president of Americans for Limited Government, and he really makes my Monday programming shine. Richard Manning, thank you. God bless. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Zeb.
Take care. Thank you. Really enjoy having him on my program, Richard Manning. He's a straight shooter that tells politics like it is. Oh, we've got to pay some bills here. I want to remind you that the Purple Shovel Market is going to have a great big doings on Saturday, the 15th of September, coming up this next weekend from 10 to 4. And, of course, it's being hosted by Nature Nursery at 120 East Highway 81 in Burley, right across from the Burley Golf Course. They're going to have all kinds of antiques and crafts and lots of food vendors. Ho, ho, ho. And, of course, unique finds. I love that terminology, unique finds. You're going to go in there and go, holy cow, I've never seen that before. It's all going to be at the Purple Shovel Market, an outdoor market, this coming Saturday the 15th from 10 to 4 at the Nature Nursery, 120 East Highway 81 in Burley. You be sure and be there. Really good people. Also want to quickly remind you, we're going to be going to our next guest momentarily on the telephone, a dear friend of mine, Brigitte Gabriel. Stand by. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Hello, Jeff and the rest of the crew. They've got all the carpeting for you, all the floor coverings for you. Now, I know, you're going to say, well, holy cow, we're not going to come inside yet. We've still got a lot of outdoor activity. Well, don't let it creep up on you. Thanksgiving's around the corner, Christmas around the corner. Make sure you've got your carpet now. Check it out along with all the great furniture buys, all the great bedroom sets, all the mattresses, everything at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. 459 Overland in Burley. They are waiting right this moment to serve you. And I also know somebody else that's waiting to serve you, and that's my buddies over there at Let's Ride. Absolutely. Nick and Randy and the whole crew at Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. And believe me, they've got super deals on all the ATVs. Check it out. And they've got that new Maverick Sport side-by-side. Whoa, buddy, get out and enjoy the great outdoors. And check out all the accessories and a super service department to keep you running. All of this at Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. This next lady is a friend of mine, and I absolutely hold her in the highest regard. She's a terrorism expert and chairman of Act for America, and the largest national security grassroots organization in the United States, and she's the author of another new book called Rise. Let's welcome to the microphone this morning, Brigitte Gabriel. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, my friend. I'm delighted to be back with you.
You know, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program, and I've said this for a long time. You are a straight shooter that tells it exactly like it is. I think that we have a lot of naivete in this country. I think we have a lot of politicians that would like to cover the truth up. How concerned are you right now, Brigitte, as to the status of where we are in this government, where we are in this country? Because I think that there is a Muslim jihad that is just lurking around the corner.
Wow, it's amazing that here we are, 17 years after 9/11, and how much the country has changed. On that day, on 9/11/2001, we were all united as one. We were all Americans. There was no Democrat, no Republican, no Libertarian. We were all Americans united in our patriotism and love for country. Fast forward to today, Zeb, and it's really sad how much the country has changed. America, as we know it, is being transformed before our very eyes. The flag that once flew on every street corner is now considered a hate symbol on college campuses. Athletes who used to break out in tears of pride during the national anthem are now kneeling in protest. Patriotism is seen as hateful. Freedom of speech is being eliminated by the tyranny of tolerance. And our police are being targeted by criminals while the mainstream media victimizes their killers. Not to mention, our public schools are being used to promote Islamic propaganda inside the classroom. Unvetted immigration is rampant, and Christmas is under assault. The country is changing, and this is exactly why I wrote Rise, Rise in defense of our American values, of our Judeo-Christian values, of everything that this country stands for, because our enemy is united against us, whether or not we are paying attention. We need to be just as united in our patriotism to defeat this enemy.
Well, let me ask you this. In the book, Rise, in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedoms, when people buy the book, read the book, and hopefully understand and comprehend what is happening here in America, when they read the last page and close the cover, what do you hope the readers will do?
I hope that they will become engaged and they will learn to become activists. What makes this book so unique, all books educate, Zeb. All books give you information that you can take and go, wow. But on our side, on the right side, people understand the problem. We are educated. 95% of these listeners right now are educated more than 95% of America. But on our side, they do not know what to do. The left is organized. The left is, they show up to rallies, they show up and demonstrate, they block highways, yet you ask any 22-year-old nitwit about socialism, and they can't even tell you what socialism is. So what makes my book unique is at the end of every chapter, no matter what I am discussing, whether immigration, whether free speech, whether the indoctrination in our schools, whether the cost of terrorism, I have a section titled Rise Up and Act, where I give people things they can do to make a difference for the country. 3 things you can do under 10 minutes that will make a difference for the country, and you can do it while you're sipping your cup of coffee in the morning, in your pajamas, sitting in front of your computer, reading your email.
Brigitte, where did all this happen? Did it happen in our school systems? Did it happen because people just were naive, like I said earlier, and it crept up on them? How did this happen in this country that we've developed this attitude of come see, come saw, and we're really not aware of the very clandestine events that are out to try to kill us?
Exactly. Well, it started with the textbooks. It started with the schools. It started with the culture. I have a chapter in the book, Rise, titled Operation Indoctrination, where I talk about how for years our children have been indoctrinated through the textbook, thinking that, learning that their country was founded on racism and bigotry, oppression, and genocide. We cannot expect them to fight for the freedoms it gave to them. Add to this the fact that our current teenagers were not even born yet, Zeb, on September 11, 2001, and no one under the age of 21 has any first-hand recollection of the evil that was done to our nation and all the humanity by radical Islamic terrorism on that day. George Orwell once said, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history, and that's exactly what's been happening in public schools. I discuss in the book, in my book, a textbook by Howard Zinn titled A People's History of the United States, which has had a major impact on how history is taught in our schools today and has shaped the minds of many Americans. This book has sold over 2 million copies since it was published, and it is still required readings from high school to college. The book, the entire book is an attempt to prove that America is an evil empire based on white supremacy and the oppression and genocide of minorities. It mentions absolutely nothing about American exceptionalism. This is the type of stuff that I lay out in my book, and I show what happened and how we got here and the forces that got us here and what we can do as Americans today to take back our youth, to take back our teenagers who are brainwashed, to take back our schools, and to really be involved in straightening the ship, because we have gone down the wrong path for so many years, especially under President Obama, the previous administration, that thankfully now we have a president at the White House who is committed to making America first, putting America first, making America secure again and safe again, and we need to do everything we can. We need to do our part to make sure we support this president in making sure America comes back to its rightful standing in the world as the most powerful, most respected nation nation on the face of the planet.
Let me ask you this, Brigitte. You and I have known each other for a long time. You've been on the show many times. But when you were doing the research for this book, Rise, did it surprise you that we have fallen down so far in this country with no pride of who we are and what we've accomplished? Did it shock you?
You know, it is shocking for me because I came to this country as an immigrant, as a legal immigrant 30 years ago. And to see the America that I idealized in my childhood, the America that I saw on television, the America that put a man on the moon, defeated communism and Nazism, defeated the Russian, brought down the Russian Empire, America that changed the world. When I came to America and I saw that the change in America in the last 30 years, especially today as a mother of American children, I am in shock as to how easy Americans let America's haters destroy America from within while they sat on the sideline with apathy thinking, well, you know, things are not that bad, you know, things, you know, they're not going to continue like this. Well, you know, things are going to change. And people went on doing their own thing. And so today we wake up and we wonder, how come the environmentalists became so powerful? How come radical Islamists became so powerful? How come the left who hates our country, who refuse to stand up for our national anthem, who work with our enemies, are basically working against our country instead of for defending our country? You know, in my book Rise, I have a chapter titled The Leftist Islamist Coalition, where I show in the chapter how now the left, being led by the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center and Planned Parenthood, are working with America's enemies, like the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a designated terror organization by the UAE, a co-conspirator in the largest terrorism trial in the history of America. You have these organizations working together with CARE, with Linda Sarsour, who is now the co-chair of the Women's March. Remember that Women's March where, you know, they marched against Trump? So we're seeing a clear coming together and working together between the left and the Islamists. And to add to that, you have Soros funding them, Soros funding to the tune of millions the mainstream media, who is basically carrying the water for these leftists and these Islamists. This is why we, the American public who loves America, we, the flag-waving, national anthem saluting, veteran respecting, founding father cherishing, proud patriotic Americans need to come together and understand why it is vital that we work together in defense of our nation and know how we can do it, and simple tips that will make a difference for the country.
You know, Brigitte, I would imagine, knowing you like I do, that you probably just sit there and shake your head over what's happening in California with the allowance of illegal immigration and the possible allowance of letting them vote and the resettlement of all the refugees in this country. California is just indicative of what might sweep this entire country. Wouldn't you agree that that is a major fear as to what's going on in that liberalized state right now?
Oh, absolutely. And not only in California, but it is sweeping across the country, like you so eloquently said, Zeb. In my book, I have a chapter titled Replacement Civilization, where I dedicate the chapter about who we are importing and what they are bringing with them. The diseases that are exploding in the country. Right now, diseases are exploding nationwide. For example, tuberculosis is now in 116 states. In 16 states, exploding. The top 4 states in the nation are California, New York, Florida, and Texas, where each state has over 500 cases of tuberculosis. To give you an idea of how we're lowering our standards also to accommodate these third world people that we are bringing into the country and illegal immigrants. The city of Denver passed an ordinance in May 2017 to basically allow people to defecate on the street. Yes, you heard it correctly. And you know why? Because defecation used to be an illegal crime punishable by up to 1 year in prison. And if you committed a crime as an illegal immigrant or a refugee, you would have been shipped out of the country and deported. So the city of Denver Denver wanted to make sure they protect the illegal criminals who are in their state because they want more Democrat voters. They passed that ordinance. So Denver right now has a larger illegal immigrant problem than San Francisco and Philadelphia. Now, most people listening to us right now who hear about the big states like California didn't even think about Denver, Colorado. But this is happening nationwide, and when you read the book, you will be shocked. By the time that people get to the last chapter of my book, Rise, they will be on fire to make a difference for the country because they will understand what's at stake and why we must come together and work in little things. I'm not telling people, go freeze in Valley Forge the way our founding fathers froze to save our nation. But there are simple things we can do, as simple as writing letters to the editor, everything that people can do to make a difference for the country.
Let me ask you this question in regards to our politicians. I would imagine that when you did the study for this book, you probably had some words about our politicians, whether they be congressmen, senators, or whomever, because of their lackadaisical attitude as to what's happening in this country with the value system going right down the drain. What do you think about our elected officials?
Wow. I was actually just in Washington, D.C. all last week meeting with elected officials on Capitol Hill and sitting down with them and going over different things happening in the country and why they need, the people that I met obviously have a backbone. They have the courage. They have the courage to introduce laws, to do what they need to do to make a difference for the country. But I met with other people as well because I was educating them about why we need to secure and reshape our TSA, for example. I have a chapter in the book titled The Cost of Terror, and I talk in particular about the TSA because despite the $7.5 billion annual budget, the TSA has a whopping 95% failure rate in detecting weapons and fake explosives during airport screening. To give you an idea, the TSA spent $2.1 billion on these machines. These machines, these scanners, you walk through the airport, you put your hand over your head and turn around. They spent $2.1 billion supposedly on these machines that are supposed to protect us. These machines can detect everything except for explosive. Right now, the TSA is using 793 useless full-body scanners funded by you and me and our listeners at 157 airports as a part of their continued We've Got You Covered theater. Do you know that if you put a gun on the side of your leg, you can walk through these machines, and these machines will not detect your gun, and you can get it on the plane? When a blogger walked through one of these machines and shot a video of himself walking through with the gun and getting it on the plane and posted the video on YouTube, the video was watched by over 2 million people. The TSA was so embarrassed that they told their employees, you need to pat down every fifth passenger to show the American public that there are other ways to detecting explosives other than these machines. So I was meeting with elected officials saying, with all the billions of dollars that we are spending to secure the nation, of all the organizations that were created after 9/11 as a part of Department of Homeland Security, TSA is the one that almost every American will have to come in contact with at one point or another when we travel, even if we're taking a vacation to go visit grandma or take a cruise. And we must secure our nation. This is the type of explosive information that I have in the book. And yes, it makes me very frustrated, but we're working on it. We're talking to elected officials, and hopefully we're going to make a difference.
Brigitte, I have said on my program many, many times that many of the pastors and ministers of various churches all across the United States have been very lax in standing up at the pulpit and preaching about the attacks on Judeo-Christian attitudes and ethics in this country, and it's almost like they've buried their head in the sand. Would you agree?
Oh, I completely agree with you because I experienced it firsthand. We reached out through my organization, Act for America, to many churches across the country saying, let's work together. We need to give a presentation about what's happening in the country. Specifically, what I was reaching out to them was about what's happening with the education system in our public schools and how children are forced to be taught about Islam, convert to Islam, adopt Islamic name, memorize and recite the Quran, and take exams about it and go to a mosque on a field trip. I told the churches, you need to become engaged. You need to speak to your local state board of education. You need to speak and be involved in your local school board election. And wouldn't you know it that a lot of churches even shied away from even speaking about this subject? And this is a very regular, subject. I mean, we cannot even call it a Christmas vacation. Now it is called winter holiday. Children are not allowed to sing Christmas hymns at school, while Muslim children are allowed to basically memorize and recite the Quran as a part of their homework. So this is why the churches, I'm a firm believer that to whom much is given, much is required. And churches have a major responsibility in standing up and saying, we need to come together and make sure that, listen, I'm a firm believer in the separation of church and state, but we at least need to stand up in defending our values in our own communities and speaking out about what's happening in our country. How did we go as a nation from teaching our children the George Washington story, that I shall never tell a lie, and the story about the cherry tree? How did we go from teaching our children the values of don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't kill, to right now having Antifa in our communities operating in every state, including Idaho, and who teach their children, or they feel they can lie, they can cheat, they can steal, they can destroy property, they can kill people, they can attack our police without any regard to any value that we cherish and we hold dear. This is why churches need to mobilize their members to be more engaged in their community, more engaged with their police, more engaged with their schools. And I encourage any pastor listening right now to this broadcast, if there are any, if my message resonates with you, I would love to come speak at your church and get the message to your community.
I'll tell you what, folks, this lady is absolutely sincere, and she knows what she's talking about. The book is called Rise, in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedoms, and the author, the lovely Brigitte Gabriel. I always look forward to having you on the program. It's available in all major bookstores. Brigitte, God bless you, and please come back soon.
Thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Brigitte Gabriel, and I had the occasion many, many times to have her on this program. And then we learned a couple of years ago that she was going to be speaking at a event up in Caldwell area. Went up and had a really nice visit with her. First time we'd met face to face. And I absolutely respect this lady for her thoughts and what she's trying to help us do, and that's be very, very aware. The book is called Rise, in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, and Brigitte Gabriel, the author. Right now, it's time for the weather. Holy moly, I'm almost a little bit late here. The weather's brought to you by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, and they've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. Absolutely the best of tax return preparation, tax planning, payroll services, retirement planning, all of this and so much more, with offices in Burley and Rupert serving you. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
If you're having a hard time breathing, well, that's because we've got more wildfires burning in the area, and it's making those upper respiratory issues flare up again. Here's your weather forecast for this Monday on Zeb at the Ranch. Yes, areas of smoke. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side. Winds out of the east, right around 10 miles an hour, becoming west by this afternoon. And we could have gusts as high as 20 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 84. Tonight, it is going to be smoky, mostly clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 81, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 48. By Wednesday, mostly sunny skies, cooling down to the mid-70s. We're going to see a low in the upper 40s for Wednesday night. By Thursday, partly sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, and lows are going to be in the mid-40s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you very much, Gina. Excellent job on that weather, as always. And it's brought to you this hour by our friends at Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. There's been tax rate changes, and there's been deductions changes. You'd better find out how it affects you, your family, and your business. You get a hold of our friends, Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Holy moly! Want to remind you, too, that at Ramsey Heating and Electric, they're very proud to offer service you can trust along with Lennox products that help keep you comfortable and save you money. This fall, Ramsey Heating and Electric is offering up to $1,600 in rebates on a brand new Lennox system. So call them today at 678-0459 or visit them online at ramseysonline.com. Proudly offering Lennox products, just another way they make you feel better. Absolutely. Coming up next hour, we've got Robert Spencer, Muslim jihad expert, and he's going to talk to us about what he thinks it might happen over the next period of time. And then at 10:30, Tom Harris talking about climate change. And I think you'll find both of those gentlemen very, very interesting. By the way, too, don't forget our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and so much more with the professionals that are dedicated and responsive to your needs. Yes, very accessible and devoted to helping you. All you need to do is call, make an appointment at 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Got a couple of public service announcements I want to get on the air real fast, and one of which is coming up this next Friday. And it's the Suicide Awareness Exposition for all veterans and interested parties. This will be on Friday the 14th from 10 until 6 at 625 Fremont Avenue in Rupert. And please be there. We had a wonderful meeting the other day with Chuck Driscoll, Veteran Service Officer, on our program. And this Suicide Awareness Exposition is very, very important. Coming up on this Friday the 14th. And that is going to be from 10 until 6 at 625 Fremont Avenue in Rupert. Also, let me see, honoring a hometown hero. Yes, and Jerry, my dear friend Jerry Voss, they're going to have the hometown heroes. We're going to try like the Dickens to get over there tonight if we can from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. It's going to be at Doc's Pizza in Rupert tonight, so don't forget that. Honoring a hometown hero. Thank you, Jerry, for all that you do along with the Modern Woodman, and that's tonight. Okay, now we're going to take a little break. Whew, I'm out of air, which for me is unusual. We're going to take a little break and send it back over to Wheels, and he's got information from CBS News. And then we're going to come in with Robert Spencer. So don't you go away. Zeb at the Ranch right here on K-Bar, 12:30 a.m. I'll be back in about 7 minutes. Good morning again. Hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch, and glad to have you aboard. And we want to say a special thank you to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, and they're having a big fall tire sale going on right now. Also, some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. We're going to have our guest with us in just a moment, but I know some folks that do a job and do it well, and it's a job you and I don't want to do at all. That's right. I'm talking about our friends at Dino's Septic Service, and all the septic tanks pumped out, and the liquid waste removal, and the sewer and sink drain lines cleaned. Oh, nobody wants to do that, but they do. They do. They've recently expanded their business, and they can better serve you. Fast, fair, friendly service. Call them today. Dino's Septic Service at 436-6526 or in Burley, 678-1638. And they'll pull in the yard with that big truck that says, "Smells Cargo on the way." Dino's Septic Service. Well, here's a gentleman that you really need to listen to and understand what he's saying, because he does know. Robert Spencer, the author of the new bestseller, The History of Jihad. Robert, good morning, sir. How are you?
Just great, thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm getting nervous, and more nervous every day. Things have been too quiet, if you will. I'm a little concerned about what's happening with ISIS. I'm more than concerned about what's happening right here on the home front with our own homegrown terrorists. Am I scared over nothing, or what are your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right. This is by no means over. The jihad groups have been a little more cautious since Donald Trump has become president, but they haven't given up. I show in the book that they believe that they are fighting a 1,400-year struggle that they got from their father and grandfather and that they will pass on to their children and grandchildren. So they are very patient and ready to bide their time until they see their best opportunity to do as much damage as possible.
Robert, I'm sure that you have taken a lot of heat for your stance and for your writings, etc. I, too, on this program have taken a lot of heat for my stand and my opinion. But I think the American public right now, honestly, is naive, or they're burying their head in the sand, as are our politicians. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, the reason why you and I have taken a lot of heat for the stance that was taken on this is because we're going against what the lies are that are being told to the American people and have been told to the American people over several decades now. The fact is that George W. Bush went into the mosque 6 days after 9/11. He said Islam is a religion of peace, which was not true then and isn't true now and never was true. And the American people have been bombarded ever since by the establishment media and by the political elites insisting exactly that and saying that anybody who says otherwise is a racist, bigoted Islamophobe. And so those who speak honestly about the motivating ideology that is behind jihad terror are so demonized and stigmatized that, yeah, most Americans are complacent because they don't know the truth and they're not being told the truth.
Is there, in your opinion, and I'll state my case right up front, I do believe there is, a major acceptance program going on through the media and through politics and through our education system, etc., that Judeo-Christian folks like me and you, probably we can cast them aside and put them as the downtrodden because there's a new awareness and a new acceptance of Islam. Am I off on my thinking?
No, you're absolutely right. This is what's in the air these days. You take, for example, the Texas public school that put in a Muslim prayer room not long ago, and even the Texas Attorney General wrote to them and said, you know, we have separation of church and state, and you can't have a prayer room from one religion in your school. And they defied him, and nothing was done. And at the same time, the media is always bombarding us with stories about how Islam is a religion of peace and so on. A few years ago, there was a very high-profile terrorism case in which the bomber was screaming Allahu Akbar, which they do, of course, very often. And then CNN and the New York Times and others ran lengthy pieces saying, really, Allahu Akbar is nothing to be concerned about. Everything is fine. This is a peaceful phrase, and you shouldn't run when you hear it, which is like asking people to stand still and get killed if they happen to be at the site of a jihad terror attack. But, yeah, these things are going on in every sphere, really, in the entertainment industry, the educational system, the establishment media, and even among politicians. There is this idea that we have to accept these falsehoods, that Islam is peace, and not raise any trouble by raising inconvenient truths and uncomfortable facts.
Why is this happening, though, Robert? Explain this in depth to me. Why is there a turning away from Judeo-Christian principles and ethics and people going hand in hand to their church on Sunday morning? And why is there an acceptance of people wearing masks and they want to kill you? Why is there an acceptance to this?
Well, I would actually say that the acceptance comes from the turning away, that nature abhors a vacuum. And once people in Western Europe and the United States started to discard their own values and become essentially people who were just materialists living for the moment, then it was an easy vacuum for Islam to fill. And that's why there's so many converts in the West to Islam. People are looking for meaning in their lives, looking for something to make their lives worthwhile, something to give them a sense of purpose. And so they find it in this. And it's because this is it's because of this vacuum that this is happening.
Robert, in your studies for this book, are you finding that the advance of jihad and the advance of their philosophy is going much faster than you anticipated?
It's certainly going very fast now. I'll tell you, the last chapter of the book I call The West Loses the Will to Live. And I show in that chapter that the best friends that the jihadis have in advancing nowadays is our Western authorities and the Western media, who are lying for them, covering for them, apologizing for them at every turn. And so, yeah, it's going very fast now, and it's our fault. It's not because they're so great or they're so clever or so smart or so strategically adept. It's because the Western authorities are opening their door to them.
We have a caller with a question, and Wheels, I might ask you if you could please ride the gain and give me a little bit more volume on the caller and our guest. Caller, go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Yeah, so we got rid of McCain finally, and I guess my question is, so who's taking his place? I'll listen off the
The caller said something about we've got rid of McCain, and I don't like to phrase it that way. John McCain passed away, the funeral services, etc. However, Robert, there were many reports that John McCain was sympathetic and friendly to the Muslim Brotherhood in our politics in D.C. Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. He certainly was. You remember back in 2012 that Representative Michelle Bachmann of Minnesota called for an investigation of Muslim Brotherhood infiltration into the United States government. And she named names. She wasn't just speculating wildly. She had specific names of people in the Obama administration who were tied to the Muslim Brotherhood and asked that this be looked into. And John McCain went on the floor of the Senate and denounced Bachmann and called her a racist and a bigot and an Islamophobe and prevented there being any investigation. Now, the question of whether or not there was actually this infiltration, that remains unanswered. And John McCain, we have to credit for that. So, yeah, I would say he was a very great help to the Muslim Brotherhood while he was in the Senate.
I don't have to mention this to you because you're aware of all the facts and the figures and the stories, etc., Robert, but I remember not too long ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a Muslim imam that said in his lifetime he will see a Muslim flag flying over the White House. Wow, that really got my attention. What are your thoughts on that?
Said that the Islamic State has boasted about it. There are even also non-Muslim analysts who look at the demographic trends and they say Europe is going to be Islamic by the end of this century and certainly going to make great inroads in North America as well.
What about, Robert, you and I talked about this the last time you were on the air, and I just find it incomprehensible that our politicians, our law enforcement agencies, etc., would let this go underneath their noses, not only the New Mexico compound, training children to kill other children and other people, but there's other compounds all across the United States. What is with this naive attitude of burying our head in the sand?
I don't think it's naive. I think that the FBI is desperately corrupt and incompetent, and that they dropped the ball on this New Mexico compound. You remember that there were repeated reports of child abuse there. The FBI had them, but they kept stalling. They didn't want to go in. They did not want to investigate this compound. And finally, the Taos, New Mexico police went in on their own accord. They got tired of waiting for the FBI. And then it gets even weirder because the compound was bulldozed. And it's still an active investigation. These people have not been sentenced. These people haven't even been tried. They haven't even been charged. I mean, they were charged, and then all the charges were dropped on a technicality, which is also suspicious, and then they were rearrested on federal weapons charges. But why was the compound bulldozed? There's any amount of evidence could have been destroyed in that. It looks as if there are people who are high up who don't want this compound investigated. And that goes also for the other compounds. We knew 10 years ago that there were at least 35 compounds of this kind all around the country, always like this one, in very rural areas, in places that were very far out of reach, a lot of suspicious activity reported by the neighbors, and the police in many of these cases were actually intimidated and didn't want to go in. And so it's a recurring pattern, and I think it's cowardice and corruption on the part of our law enforcement officials rather than naivete.
Well, you know, Robert, I hate to beleaguer this fact, but bear with me. I'm just an old cowboy from Idaho. But I go back to the three-letter word question, why? Why are we being so accepting? Why are we being so turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to these people? I mean, I can't understand it when they have a jihad. They hate us, the infidels. What in the world is the matter with our politicians and officials, etc., that they could be this stupid?
A lot of them are very intimidated. They're very scared of being charged with Islamophobia. And they're very scared that they will be called racist and it'll be all over the papers that they have been bigoted against Muslims. And this is how you get control of any politician you want to make this charge. Remember that the initial judge in that New Mexico compound case freed several of the suspects on very low bail because the defense was charging Islamophobia, and the judge fell for it. Now, it's appalling when you think about training children to be school shooters and a dead child in the compound, and they're talking about Islamophobia, but that's what happened. It's a very powerful weapon, and the left uses it very, very frequently.
In your book, The History of Jihad, what are you trying to tell people? I mean, what's the awareness point that you want to get out when they close the book?
I'm trying to tell people that there has been, for 1,400 years, without any interruption, all around the world, jihad, warfare, wherever there have been Muslims and non-Muslims. Wherever there have been Muslims and non-Muslims, there have been, among the Muslims, jihadis who have attacked in an unprovoked fashion the non-Muslims. And so the same doctrines are held that led to all this. The same doctrines are held by Muslims in the United States. They haven't been reformed or rejected or reconsidered. And so why do we think we're going to be different?
You know, I'm worried. When I talk to you, I start worrying about what we can do. And the other part of that question is, has it gone too far? How would you respond to those two questions?
Well, I don't think it's ever over till it's over, as the great Yogi Berra said. We still got a shot as long as there are free people. Things can turn around very quickly. That's one lesson of history that we can learn. And so it has progressed very far. Most people have no idea how far and would be shocked if they knew. The fact is that the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamic organizations have infiltrated and made tremendous inroads into our intelligence and homeland security and law enforcement agencies, and also into the political system, and they're increasing in that infiltration. And so we have to awaken to this problem quickly, or it's going to be very difficult, but it certainly isn't over.
What about the common man and woman like myself and everybody else listening to this program right now? What would you tell them about awareness? What would you tell them about vigilance? What would you tell them that they need to really watch for?
Well, they certainly need to not believe the establishment media line that there's nothing to be concerned about, and especially that Muslims screaming Allahu Akbar are benign and peaceful. If they hear that, they should get as far away as possible. But in terms of day-to-day awareness, there's nothing really anybody can say because the strike could happen anywhere at any time. And so just try to be aware of your surroundings and be careful. But in a larger sense, we have to pressure our political leaders to stop purveying this nonsense and to start taking seriously their responsibility to protect the American people, even if it takes even if there is a political cost to doing so.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question for you, Robert. Go ahead, caller. Please, you're on the air.
This idea that there's a radical Islam in Islam is kind of true, but the thing that's left out is both sides of that equation study the same book. So to pretend that somebody that isn't acting out on Islam is somehow safe is very naive. So I'm just going to cut to the chase that Islam needs to be snuffed out. The political movement known as Islam needs to be stopped. Forget the religious aspects. It's a political movement. It's very effective. And by the time people realize that it's there, it'll be too late.
I'm going to have Robert respond to that on the air. Go ahead, sir, please.
Yeah, we certainly have to remember the First Amendment, which grants the freedom of religion, but the freedom of religion is not a license to break other laws. And we also need to recognize, as the caller said, that there is political Islam, and that political Islam is incompatible with the Constitution in numerous particulars because it denies the freedom of speech, the freedom of conscience, the equality of rights of women, the equality of rights of non-Muslims, and more. And so it should be understood that political Islam is a totalitarian, supremacist, aggressive, and expansionist political system, and we need to regulate it accordingly in the United States.
You know, a lot of our politicians that we talked about earlier, Robert, they seem to hedge a little bit. I had a kind of an argument with one of our congressmen, Mike Simpson, over this same issue with the Muslim Brotherhood being involved in D.C. and with the Obama administration. But I think it's high time that all people, all the folks that go to the polls, whether it's here in the midterms in a couple of weeks or in 2020, they need to start asking direct questions of our politicians as to where they stand and what they're going to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Politicians have been allowed to skate on this for years because the public has been largely uninformed, and that just underscores the responsibility of those of us who are informed to work all the harder and to try to wake people up as much as possible. We are being lied to on a massive scale by the establishment media. It's now been abundantly proven since the 2016 election that the establishment media is not a news source, but a propaganda outlet for the hard left, and so we need to combat it in every way we possibly can, given the platforms that we have, of course.
You know, I would imagine, and again, I'm not trying to speculate with your own personal opinions, but I would imagine that you're probably very concerned about the outcome of the midterms, possibly with the liberals and the Democrats regaining a lot of power, because they seem to be more sympathetic to the Islamic Jihad than anyone else. What are your thoughts?
Yes, certainly. If there really is a blue wave, then there will also be a red wave, not a Republican wave, but a wave of blood in terms of new jihad terror attacks all over the country. Because right now, the jihadis are actually just biding their time and waiting for that eventuality when the law enforcement and intelligence scrutiny will be off them again, and when they will be, the people in power will be more concerned about Islamophobia and racism than about protecting the American people, and that's when they'll strike.
Robert, this is a bestseller, The History of Jihad, but are you going to be doing any follow-ups? Have you got plans for another book that would be also related to this book?
Well, I certainly hope to write some other histories about various aspects of Islamic history, like Islam's treatment of the Jews, Islam's treatment of Christians, Islam's treatment of Hindus, various things like that. We shall see what develops.
And tell us quickly, where can the book be obtained?
It is at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and should be in any self-respecting bookstore.
The History of Jihad, and the author, a very good friend of this program that's been on numerous times in the past. Hopefully we'll come back. Robert Spencer, God's blessings to you, and good luck with your books. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting gentleman, and I'm proud to have him on the show, and that's Robert Spencer. And one of the little news tips that he had given us is that there was a finding of two Muslims that were trying to build a bomb involving a driverless car. All of that just to kill innocent people. Absolutely disgusting. Let's take a look and see what we've got cooking here. I want to remind you, too, that on Thursdays we have a segment on our program called Cassia County School Days, and our sponsor is A Child's World. Thank you so much for what they do. Don't forget, all the summer clothes are marked way down to probably 50% off or more. You better get in there and check it out. They've got all the games and the toys and the puzzles and the Cherokee scrubs. They've got everything. It's a family store at 1308 Overland in Burley, and I'm talking about A Child's World. And they bring you School Days in Cassia County on Thursdays at 10:10. So our thanks to them for sponsoring Cassia County School Days. In just a moment, we're going to send it back over to Wheels, and he's going to carry the ball up until the bottom of the hour for a hard break, and then we're going to come back with Tom Harris. And Tom, of course, is the executive director of the International Climate Science Coalition, and he's going to tell you the real truth, the real honesty about what's going on with climate change or not. He's been on our program before, and we're looking forward to having him on here again this morning. Another little note that I need to get on the air here this morning real quick as I tipped over everything in my haste. The annual Bounty of Harvest Dinner and Bazaar, sponsored by the Rupert United Methodist Women, will be held on Friday, September 28th from 4 until 7 p.m. at the church at 605 H Street. And they're going to have a great dinner menu headed up with pulled pork and all kinds of pies. And they're just going to have a delicious evening over there. And you can order for orders to go at 436-3354. That's coming up on Friday, September the 28th at the Rupert United Methodist Church. And let's see, did I have anything else I needed to get on? I think that's going to take care of it for this morning. And right now, we're going to send it back over to our main studios. Wheels and the crew for this hard break. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
And don't forget at Ramsey Heating and Electric, they're very proud to offer service you can trust, along with Lennox products that keep you comfortable and save you money, too. This fall, Ramsey Heating and Electric is offering up to $1,600 in rebates on brand new Lennox systems, and you better call them right now today, 678-0459, or visit them online at ramseysonline.com. Proudly offering Lennox products, just another way to make you feel better. Well, I'll tell you what, this man, I've had him on the program times in the past, and he makes me feel better because it's nice to know that there are people as knowledgeable as he is about climate change, issue that I really enjoy talking about because we got to stop it somehow. And that, of course, is Tom Harris. And Tom is the executive director of the International Climate Science Coalition. Good morning, Tom. Nice to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be on. Jack, how are you doing?
Well, I'm not bad, but little by little, inch by inch, kind of like an Abbott and Costello comedy routine, the left will not give up, Al Gore will not give up, and they keep perpetrating this climate change, global warming theory, and that how the United States has to jump in, all in, with money and a lot of cutbacks. Where are we right now today, Tom, if you will?
Well, the big event actually is coming up starting on Wednesday in San Francisco, the Climate Change Action Summit. Al Gore is going to be there, Jerry Brown, prime ministers, actors, singers, and even a few scientists. And they're going to be telling us, to quote Governor Brown, he says, "It's up to you, it's up to me, and tens of millions of other people to get it together, to roll back the forces of carbonization and join together to combat the existential threat of climate change." So that's what we're going to hear, is that we got to stop using fossil fuels and save the planet.
Yeah, but Tom, I'm really concerned about this. We can't take this lightly because, number one, the news media is in bed, if you will, with these people, Hollywood and Al Gore types, and they will get the press coverage. And for those that really don't understand the problem, if there is one, they're going to jump hook, line, and sinker in favor of what Hollywood and Al Gore types are telling them. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And the reason is very simple. They've managed to sort of distort the language of the climate debate so that people think that this is the truth, first of all. And they also use language like carbon pollution, which everybody thinks of as being dark and dirty. When in fact, really the thing they're talking about is carbon dioxide, which is invisible and odorless. It's plant food. So they've really hijacked the language of the climate debate. And it's, like something right out of 1984. Remember, in the appendix to 1984, they had a whole, 10 pages on newspeak. And that was how the government actually invented language that would prevent people from really thinking, and they could just quack like a duck. They called it duck speak, and they could say things that would be politically correct without even thinking. And that's what's happened in the climate debate. We see this all the time. President Obama was saying 97% of scientists agree, global warming pollution has to be stopped or whatever. But those kinds of statements take advantage of the gullibility of people when they don't dig into the topic very much, just based on the language.
Tom, I know that you're very well known, and I know you're very well educated on this subject. And when you go to speak somewhere or give a quote for a newspaper story or a magazine article, are they looking at you like maybe you're some kind of a quack? I mean, how are you treated for your stand on anti-global warming and climate change?
Well, in Canada, they just about virtually ignore us completely. And it's sad because 10 years ago, it was interesting. We had publications from coast to coast and regularly on radio and even on some television. And, in 2009, for example, when I was in the Copenhagen Climate Conference, we were there and we put out a press release, and it was picked up in many, many newspapers. But they've closed the door. I mean, most of these newspapers are so convinced that the politically correct point of view is the only one they should be promoting that they won't publish us. Happily, we have the United States just south of our border, and your editors are far more open-minded. We're published virtually once a day somewhere in the U.S. I mean, that's kind of the average that we have, and letters to the editor and op-eds and interviews like with you. So there's much more open-mindedness in the United States than most countries about climate change.
When you look at the wealthy, you look at the Hollywood types, the Matt Damons and people like him, and then you look at the Tom Steyers, multi-billionaires, etc. It's kind of like they're buying into the theory of climate change, and they're forcing it upon us as the poor peons that have to either take it or we're going to be left run over by the herd. How do we fight back?
Well, the best thing to do is to actually point out to progressives, or like they call themselves, the liberals, is to point out that, many of the causes that they say they support, things like social justice and environmental protection, and being open-minded to alternative points of view. The climate scare has become so extreme, with over $1 billion a day being spent on climate finance around the world, that they are actually damaging many of the causes they hold dear. And, it's interesting because the UN, they had that poll, and I think we spoke about it last time, where when people are actually asked to prioritize the issues that they think are most important for the UN and governments to focus on, when they look at things like clean water and access to energy and alleviating poverty and gender equality and education and things like that, they put climate change at the very bottom, okay? So this is the thing to do, I think, with liberals and the left-wingers, to say, look, do you realize that in Ontario, in Canada, we're a great example of what not to do, that we decided in 2002 our government was going to lead the world on climate change. So we closed down our least expensive source of electricity, which was coal-fired power. We got about a quarter of our electricity from coal. And since 2002, our electricity rates have gone up 200%.
Oh, my.
Okay, 200% rise. Now, these kinds of rates don't matter to the rich, but it really hurts the poor. It increases the cost of food and everything that uses energy. So, that's just one of many, many things. I mean, biofuels, when they turn foodstuffs into, food crops into fuel, food prices spike around the world. And, of course, wind turbines kill millions of birds and bats everywhere. So I think that the point is, if we can show them that the consequences of supporting the climate scare are disastrous to the causes that they say they hold dear, you hope they take a step back and say, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to help these poor people now, or maybe stop climate change that might happen in 50 years? Because that's all we're talking about. Right now, there's nothing going on. I mean, really, literally, I was looking at the state records for maximum temperature for the United States, and 50 states. How many states do you think in the 21st century set their maximum temperature record? 18 years. You'd expect to be half a dozen anyway.
Yeah.
There's 2. Okay, only South Carolina and South Dakota set records in 2012 and 2006. You go back to the 1930s. In 1936 alone, 15 states set their all-time maximum temperature records. 15. Okay, in contrast to 2 in the whole 21st century. So, I mean, these kind of statistics have to be really pushed out there because I think subliminally, once the left start to realize the impact of their climate scare and you know, what it does to things like social justice and how it hurts people, they're going to be more open to these kind of statistics, you know, because the bottom line is the only extreme weather record of any kind that was set this year so far was the maximum hailstone size in, let's see, in Alabama. That's right. In Alabama, they had a 5+ inch hailstone. If you can imagine that. I mean, that would be, if that's, you know, if climate change is going to kill people, that might be the way it does it. But that's the only record that was set in the whole of the year so far. So I think, you know, get them to open their minds to see the impact of the climate scare and then show them the data.
You know, Tom, let me ask you this, and you've got the expertise when it comes to all the testing and the data, et cetera. I do not. But I was sitting here thinking the other day when I was listening to Al Gore on TV, which really strained me because I've got a lot of better things I'd like to listen to. But I wondered about the testing procedures over the many, many decades. Today, the enhancement of easier and better technology as compared to 30, 40, 60, 80 years ago. A lot of that information of 80 years ago could be very skewed and not very reliable. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly true. Because until the last few decades, you know, they were using mercury thermometers. And, you know, depending on how you read it, it can have an accuracy of plus or minus a degree. So when they talk about, for example, NASA GIST, the Goddard Institute for Space Studies, nobody would call them climate change deniers. They say that the temperature of the Earth averaged over the planet, which is a pretty fictitious number, but they say it's gone up just over 1 degree Celsius. 1 degree, despite a 40% rise in CO2. So, I mean, that's hardly what you'd call catastrophic. And so the whole climate scare, Zeb, is based on one thing, and that is computer model forecasts of the future. Because what's happening in the present just isn't significant. And the warming, of course, is being beneficial as we came out of the Little Ice Age. But so it's all based on the computer models. So you have to say, well, how good are they? Well, they're pretty terrible. If you actually go back 50 years and you plug in the conditions that existed then and you run the computer models, you don't get today's conditions. So that's the other point. They're spending $1 billion a day on computer model, essentially based on computer models that don't work. So, you know, I think if you look at the UN's poll, for example, and you look at countries that don't have the basics of life, Nigeria, for example, they put climate change not only last, but very, very last, okay? It's only when you get to the richer countries like Denmark where they put climate change third or fourth, I can't remember. The United States, interestingly, put climate change 10th, okay? So even in the U.S., they didn't rate it very high. But I think the thing is to just help the left understand the impact of what they're doing. Because the impact, I mean, imagine what you could do with $1 billion a day.
Oh my!
To help the poor of the world.
Absolutely. You know, Tom, I've asked you this before on previous programs, and I want you to elaborate on your answer here. But what do they want, the Damons and the Gores and the others? What do they really want? Is it control? Is it the administering of the United States going down to a third world power? I mean, really, what do they want and hope to achieve?
Yeah, there's many objectives behind this. I mean, some of them actually believe we are causing a climate crisis. And, you know, people like Matt Damon, I think he's a wonderful actor, he may actually believe that we're causing a climate crisis. And that's why it's really important to get people like him the real numbers, okay? And you know, actually understand his concerns and treat him as if he doesn't have a, nefarious alternative motive. There are people, though, who do have alternative motives. Of course, people in the alternative energy industry. I mean, you know, and including nuclear. If you really think about it, a few years ago, the World Nuclear Association, based in London, put out announcements from their president in speeches that were even more extreme than Al Gore. And, of course, the reason is obvious. I mean, maybe they do believe it. But regardless, they have a very strong vested interest. If they can replace coal-fired power with nuclear power or gas with nuclear, they make a great deal of money. So I have friends in the nuclear industry who are quite upset about this because the nuclear industry has prided itself over the years of being very technically accurate. And, of course, what will happen if they continue to boost the climate scare is that when the climate scare falls apart, and it will, because eventually people will say, whoa, just a minute, this isn't happening, especially if we go into global cooling, which people like Dr. Ball are forecasting. They say that we're actually headed for cooling. And if that happens, I think that industries that supported the climate scares, including nuclear, will be really disgraced. But to answer your question, I think there are a lot of people who look on the climate issue as a way to get more government control. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, if you bring in more and more alternative energy that requires a huge amount of government support, and you tax the heck out of the coal industry, which has been a great example of capitalism and private enterprise being very successful, you eventually control the energy infrastructure by governments more and more and more. And I think, honestly, a lot of people really think that the government is the best mechanism to run our society in every way. And so I think you're right. And there are people who also look on it as a huge transfer of wealth. I mean, they're talking about $100 billion green fund, things like that, where the monies are going to be funneled into developing countries. And of course, you don't know where that money is really going to go. But the bottom line, Zeb, is that there's many, many motives. So I don't generalize, but I think you're right. There are a lot of them that are not very, very honorable motives.
I am very concerned, Tom, in regards to our fall elections, our midterms, so to speak, and the possibility that the Democrats and the Liberals may regain the House, and that means a power surge for a lot of the issues and items that they want. I'm very concerned that there's going to be a twisting of the arm, if you will, of President Trump to reattach himself to the Paris Climate Accord. Are my worries unfounded?
No, I think you have very legitimate worries. A lot of people are saying, Trump's not going to change his mind. But he did change his mind. In 2009, he and his children actually signed an open letter to the New York Times imploring President Obama to, work harder on the climate change. I can't remember the exact words, but, I mean, this was a full-page open letter that Trump signed on the side of climate alarmism as recently as 2009. Okay, so... And it is interesting because he doesn't say that the U.S. is definitely going to get out of the Paris Agreement because he leaves the door open. He says that under certain conditions they would reconsider it. So, yeah, it is very concerning. And if you look at their, the act, the replacement for the Clean Power Plan, I'll remember the proper name of it in a minute, but they just put that out, the replacement for the Clean Power Plan. It still treats carbon dioxide as if it's causing dangerous global warming. So they're not getting away from this. The only thing, there's two things that Trump should do. He should, first of all, get them to re-examine the endangerment finding. This is the basis of what the EPA is doing on carbon dioxide. They decided that carbon dioxide was dangerous to human health, which of course it isn't. It's ridiculous. But that has to be reopened, because as long as that is still in place, then if the EPA don't regulate carbon dioxide, environmentalists can sue them and say, look, the endangerment finding is here, you have to take action. So that's the first thing he should do, is reopen the endangerment finding, use the new data from groups like the non-governmental International Panel on Climate Change to demonstrate that CO2 is not a problem. The other thing they have to do is they have to get out of the Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was the document that was signed in 1992 by the first President Bush and other world leaders that sets the ground rules for all of the UN climate agreements. And if you get out of this Framework Convention, and you can do it, you have to give a year's notice, and then you're out in 3 years, I believe, are the rules, you're out of every treaty that is based on the Framework Convention. And that would include the Paris Agreement. So if he's not going to leave the stage open for future presidents to get back into Paris, to get back into more and more CO2 control, he's got to do two things: get rid of the endangerment finding and get out of that Rio Treaty.
Let me ask you this, Tom, and my concern is with our education system, whether it's a kindergarten all the way through a major university. There seems to be a trend, more so every day currently than there was 20, 30 years ago, where the teachers, the professors, everybody are harping to these kids to accept climate change. Have we gone too far, or can we reverse this kind of liberal education?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It is really tough because, it's become one of the ideals on the sort of left wing's laundry list of ideals. And many people on the left who don't know anything about climate change support it right away because it's part of the laundry list of their ideals. And somehow we have to make it so that it's not left versus right. You know, there are many people on the left. We have some scientists, for example, we work with who are left-wingers. They say, this is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. Scientifically, it's wrong. It's going to hurt the poor. So we have to try to recruit people from the left because, at least in Canada, the education system is very left-wing, and I presume it's probably the same in the U.S. And so many teachers who don't know anything about climate change are automatically just spouting the Al Gore stuff right away because it's all, it's part of the catechism. And so we have to make it so that it's attractive for left-wingers to move over to our side. And that's one of my challenges. I'm trying to make this debate nonpartisan. And from that point of view, we don't criticize Al Gore as being dishonest or whatever. I mean, he may be, but we don't say that because, of course, we don't really know what he thinks. So what we're trying to do more and more is to take the edge off some of the attacks on the left. Make it so that they could actually change ships. As long as they think that, we hate their guts and there's no in-between, then it's very difficult to get them to even think about the issue sensibly. So, we get in there and we say things, we understand that we have to protect the environment. We should conserve energy, reduce pollution. These are important things to do. We also have to protect people from climate change because climate always changes, and there's many examples in history where civilizations collapse because they didn't adapt. So, I think that the key is to try and get more and more people from the left because the U.S. is, about 50-50 divided between left and right. And if we have half of the camp not even listening to us, then, that's no good. So we really have to kind of frame these issues in such a way that the left will take a step back, at least the sensible left, and say, whoa, just a minute here. This is kind of like my daughter's bleeding to death in front of me, and I'm not helping her because I'm looking at the university calendar to see what courses she might take. That's crazy. I mean, there are people in the world who need help in many, many ways. The idea that we're causing dangerous climate change is something that might happen someday according to computer models that don't work. So that's my point. I think that we have to somehow open the door to people who otherwise might be our opponents, but help them recognize that this hurts their own causes.
I've only got a minute left here, Tom, but I don't mean to exacerbate the problem that we're talking about, but I've tried to sit down with people that are absolutely hell-bent in believing that there's climate change or global warming. How do you open the door so that they can at least listen and try to understand the other side to where they might be a convert to common and thinking against climate change?
Well, I think the thing is to admit that there is climate change. Humans probably have some impact. We don't know the impact. So far, the impacts are very small, and citing those statistics like 1 degree temperature change in the last century. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's the key is to actually admit to them, yes, okay, you're right here, you're right here, you're right here, but do you understand what this means, and do you understand the cost? I think that's the real key is you have to sort of make friends with them a bit. And show them, I think the poor should be helped, and I think that we should protect the wildlife and the animals. But I also want to see humans flourish. And that's a point that Alex Epstein brought up at the America First Energy Conference. And people should go to that webpage and click on his video. He talks about how to do what you are asking. His name is Alex Epstein, and you go to americafirstenergy.org. Click on his keynote presentation, and it's beautiful. He shows how to frame the debate so that you can win even with people who don't agree at first.
Absolutely. I just absolutely look forward to having you on our show anytime and every time you're available. Executive Director of the International Climate Science Coalition, Tom Harris. God bless you, Tom. Please come back soon.
Okay, thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. Very, very interesting and informed individual, Tom Harris. Thank you for being on the program this morning. Right now, I've got to get a weather forecast on really quick. Scarrows Meets, Don Scarrow and the crew, at 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657, or you can go to their website and check out all the delicious meats, scarrowsmeats.com. Oh, my goodness sakes. I mean, whether it's the barbecue packages with the beef and the pork and the chicken, or those marinated pork ribs. Oh, they are good. You're going to love the meat. You're going to love the folks that serve you over at Scarrows Meats in Jerome. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
If you're having a hard time breathing, well, that's because we've got more wildfires burning in the area, and it's making those upper respiratory issues flare up again. Here's your weather forecast for this Monday on Zeb at the Ranch. Yes, the areas of smoke. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side. Winds out of the east, right around 10 miles an hour, becoming west by this afternoon. And we could have gusts as high as 20 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 84. Tonight, it is going to be smoky, mostly clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 81, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 48. By Wednesday, mostly sunny skies, cooling down to the mid-70s. We're going to see a low in the upper 40s for Wednesday night. By Thursday, partly sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, and lows are going to be in the mid-40s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina, and brought to you by Don Scarrow and the crew at Scarrows Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. Telephone number to call them, 324-7657. Delicious meats. Changing the way we eat? Yep. One delicious bite at a time, Scarrows Meats. Want to say a great big thank you to our major sponsor of our program, as they have been for a long time, and that's our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You know, going into the fall, you're probably going to be really concerned about driving conditions, you know, with the ice and the snow and the sludge and everything else. Well, they're having a great big fall tire sale right now. I urge you to go on in there and check out all the tires you may need for your cars, your pickups, your SUVs. Great buys at all 7 locations. As I try to turn off my phone. Sorry about that. Don't forget, too, along with the tires, they've got the best in brake service. The absolute best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts. All of this and more, along with the best of batteries at each and every location. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best serving you, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Well, that's going to wrap it up and put it back in the box for today, and we're going to be back here tomorrow morning at 8:06 with more Zeb at the Ranch right here on K-Bar, 12:30 a.m., and then streaming live on the internet all over the world. Boy, our internet audience has grown. It's huge, and that's on ZebBell.com. Want to urge you, we'll be back here at 8:06 tomorrow, where we always say the way things were are the way things ought to be, but we've incorporated in addition to that, the world needs more cowboys. Have yourself a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.